Thank you for stopping by at the Movie Marquee. Our podcast reviews well-known movies and contains spoilers. The podcast may contain mature subject matter and mature language. Listener discretion is advised. Enjoy the show.
Quiet on set. Places, everybody. And action.
Welcome, everyone, to the Movie Marquee. Today's showing is the 1994 second movie release by Quentin Tarantino, Pulp Fiction. With me, as always, is Ted.
Pretty please, with sugar on top. Clean a fucking car.
And Ken.
Just because you are a character doesn't mean that you have character.
And we have a special treat for our listeners today. We have our special celebrity guest all the way from Virginia, my brother, Adam.
But the gimp's sleeping.
That's right. Say hi, Adam.
Hey everyone, how you doing?
There we go. He's a big movie buff, knows his movies, and has nothing to plug. So
You better wake him up then.
Absolutely nothing.
that's right. Better wake up the gimp. And I am Eric. Hamburgers, cornerstone of any nutritious breakfast. All right.
Especially the Royale with cheese.
I've had one before in Germany.
That's right.
Very cool.
The metric system.
They wouldn't know what the fuck a quarter pounder is.
I love it.
All right, this movie is just so loaded with such great lines, man. There's so many to pick from. It's hard not to. So let's kick off Pulp Fiction here. Ted, talk about some of the particulars of this one.
All right, so we got Pulp Fiction. It was directed by Quentin Tarantino with a screenplay by Quentin Tarantino. It has a running time of 154 minutes. It had a release date of October 14th, 1994. It had a budget of $8 million and a box office gross of $213.9 million. And Pulp Fiction, of course, stars Uma Thurman as Mia Wallace, John Travolta as Vincent Vega, Harvey Keitel as Winston the Wolf, Ving Rhames as Marcellus Wallace, Samuel L. Jackson as Jules Winfield, Bruce Willis as Butch Coolidge, Amanda Plummer as Honey Bunny, Maria de Medeiros as Fabian, Peter Green as Zed, Eric Stoltz as Lance, Quentin Tarantino himself as Jimmy Dimmick, Christopher Walken as Captain Coons, Tim Roth as Pumpkin, Frank Whaley as Brett, Rosanna Arquette as Jody, and Angela Jones as Esmeralda Villalobos.
So we're looking at this thing 26 years in the future here. That's a pretty damn impressive cast, if you think about it.
It's
that's
awesome
a
cast.
pretty impressive cast that they got there. Movie brought Travolta back from the dead.
Yes, it
No,
did.
no. Look Who's Talking did.
Oh, yeah, of course it
Some
did.
respect.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I stand corrected.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, Ted. What did the critics think of this one?
No big surprise. The critics' score is a 92%, which makes it certified fresh. The audience score comes in at a 96%. Finding negative reviews for this was actually pretty difficult. There were a couple of people who I did find that were of some repute. We have Derek Malcolm of The Guardian. He said, Pulp Fiction has most of the virtues of its genre, except that peculiar passion that invariably lies behind the best of them, because that it can often seem both empty and retrograde. I don't know what he must have watched a different movie. Adam Mars Jones from The Independent, UK. He said Reservoir Dogs still looks like the great American film of the 90s, but Quentin Tarantino's second film as writer-director shows him already deep in the territory of self-parody. I don't understand that, but okay. On the positive critics side, I mean, it's a who's who. We'll start off with Janet Maslin of the New York Times. We've talked about her before. She said, a triumphant, cleverly disorienting journey through a demi-monde that springs entirely from Mr. Tarantino's ripe imagination. A landscape
of those $10 words, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
A landscape of danger, shock, hilarity, and vibrant local color. Mick LaSalle from the San Francisco Chronicle had one of the better lines. He said, it's the movie equivalent of that rare sort of novel where you find yourself checking to see how many pages are left and hoping there are more, not fewer. Michael Wilmington from the Chicago Tribune, this movie gets its charge not from action pyrotechnics, but from its electric barrage of language, wisecracks, and dialogue, from the mordant 70s classicism of its long take camera style and its smart, offbeat, strangely sexy cast. One of the most praiseworthy reviews, of course, came from Roger Ebert from the Chicago Sun-Times. Here's just a small snippet from his review. Quentin Tarantino is the Jerry Lee Lewis of cinema, a pounding performer who doesn't care if he tears up the piano as long as everybody's rocking. His new movie, Pulp Fiction, is a comedy about blood, guts, violence, strange sex, drugs, fixed fights, dead body disposal, leather freaks, and a wristwatch that makes a dark journey down through the generations. The very lack of caution and introspection that makes Pulp Fiction crackle like an ozone generator. Here's a director who's been let loose inside the toy store and wants to play all night. If the situations are inventive and original, so is the dialogue. A lot of movies these days are flat, functional speech. The characters say only enough to advance the plot. But the people in Pulp Fiction are in love with the words for their own sake. The dialogue by Tarantino and Avery is off the wall sometimes, but that's the fun of it. It also means that the characters don't all sound the same. Travolta is iconic. Jackson is exact. Plummer and Roth are dopey lovey-doveys. Keitel uses the shorthand of the busy professional. Thurman learned how to be a mole by studying soap operas. It is part of the folklore that Tarantino used to work as a clerk in a video store, and the inspiration for Pulp Fiction is old movies, not real life. The movie is like an excursion through the lurid images that lie wound up and trapped inside all those boxes on the Blockbuster shelves. Tarantino once described the old pulp mags as cheap, disposable entertainment that you could take to work with you and roll up and stick in your back pocket. Yeah, and not be able to wait until lunch so you could start reading them again.
Two things. One, a comedy. And two, that's a snippet? What the heck is... What I think a snippet is like a few lines. That was like, what'd you read from a book?
It's a
That was the
comedy.
entire review.
You don't think this is a comedy?
There's
No, I don't
parts
think
of
this
this
is a
movie that
comedy.
are freaking
Yeah, they're
hilarious.
funny,
absolutely.
yeah, but I mean,
Absolutely.
I don't think
it's not a comedy.
It's
no.
not a comedy.
It's not a comedy. He didn't say it's a comedy. He says it
Yes,
has
he did. Well, based on what you read, you said it was a comedy.
that it has comedy parts to it.
You go back and read your first line where you said he says it's a comedy.
The words of Roger are law.
Yeah, his new movie Pulp Fiction is a comedy about blood, guts.
Yes, it is a
okay,
comedy.
so-
Comedy about bloods and guts.
I consider it drama. There is parts of it that are very funny though.
No, I
but-
totally agree with you on that.
As far as this movie goes too, with the critics, just to further hammer home the point how immensely successful this movie was critically and through the audience. Out of 186 top 10 lists, but from the critics across, I'm assuming America and Europe, out of 168 of them, 79 of them put this as the number one movie of 1994.
It's the same
So-
critics though that probably like Rocky too as well.
Sorry.
So.
Forrest Gump is clearly the number one movie.
Yeah, that's but
This is ironically enough number 94 on AFI's Top 100.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask what it
it's
was
a
on
little
AFI.
that's a
Yeah.
little low.
I don't know if it is low.
It's low.
It might be a little high.
No, this movie was a game changer.
Absolutely.
Changed
Hey, it
Uma
did,
Thurman's
absolutely.
hairdo.
All right, Ken, go into the plot. Be
Good
fun.
luck with that.
Smoke 'em if you got 'em. Here we go.
Yeah.
Jules and Vincent are hitmen that arrive at an apartment to retrieve a briefcase for their boss, gangster Marcellus Wallace, from a business partner named Brett. After Vincent checks the contents of the briefcase, Jules shoots one of Brett's associates. He recites a passage from the Bible, and he and Vincent kill Brett for trying to double-cross Marcellus. They take the briefcase to Marcellus and wait while he bribes boxer Butch Coolidge to take a dive in his upcoming match. The next day, Vincent purchases heroin from a drug dealer, Lance. He then shoots up and drives to meet Marcellus's wife, Mia, having agreed to escort her while Marcellus is out of town. They eat at Jack Rabbit Slim's, a 1950s themed restaurant. At the restaurant, they take first place in a twist contest. Back at Mia's home, Mia finds Vincent's heroin and snorts it, mistaking it for cocaine. She suffers an overdose. Vincent rushes her to Lance's house, where they revive her with an injection of adrenaline into her heart. Vincent then drops Mia off at her home, and the two agree never to tell Marcellus about the incident. Vincent can't tell him anyway, he's dead. Butch bets the bribe money on himself and double-crosses Marcellus, winning the bout but accidentally killing his opponent in the ring. Knowing that Marcellus will send hitmen after him, he prepares to flee with his girlfriend, but discovers she has forgotten to pack a gold watch passed down to him through a couple of assholes. Literally. Returning to his apartment to retrieve it, Butch makes some Pop-Tarts, and then Butch notices a submachine gun on the kitchen counter, and then he hears the toilet flush. When Vincent exits the bathroom, Butch shoots him dead and departs. Then Marcellus spots Butch stopped at a traffic light. Butch rams his car into him, leaving both of them injured and dazed. Once Marcellus regains consciousness, he draws his gun and shoots at Butch, chasing him into a pawn shop. As Butch gains the upper hand and is about to shoot Marcellus, Maynard, the shop owner, captures them at gunpoint and binds and gags them in the basement. Maynard and his accomplice, Zed, take Marcellus into another room and begin to rape him, leaving the Gimp, a silent figure in a bondage suit, to watch over Butch. Butch breaks loose and knocks the Gimp unconscious. Instead of fleeing, he decides to save Marcellus. He kills Maynard and frees Marcellus, who shoots Zed in the crotch with Maynard's shotgun. Marcellus informs Butch that they are even, and to tell no one about the rape, and to depart Los Angeles forever. Earlier, after Vincent and Jules have killed Brett in his apartment, another man bursts out of the bathroom and fires at them, but by a miracle, he misses. After briefly checking themselves for wounds, Jules and Vincent shoot him dead. While driving away with Brett's associate Marvin, Jules professes that their survival was a miracle, which Vincent disputes. Vincent accidentally shoots Marvin in the face, killing him and covering Vincent and Jules and the car in blood and brains in broad daylight. They hide the car at a home of Jules' friend Jimmy, who demands that they deal with the problem before his wife, Bonnie, comes home. Marcellus sends a cleaner, Winston Wolfe, who directs Jules and Vincent to clean the car, hide the body in the trunk, dispose of their bloody clothes, and take the car to a junkyard. At a diner, for breakfast, Jules tells Vincent that he plans to retire from his life of crime. Jules is convinced that their miraculous survival at the apartment was a sign of divine intervention. While Vincent is in the bathroom, a couple, Pumpkin and Honey Bunny, hold up the restaurant and demand Marcellus's briefcase. Distracting him with its contents, Jules overpowers Pumpkin and holds him at gunpoint. Honey Bunny becomes hysterical and points her gun at him. Vincent returns with his gun aimed at her, but Jules diffuses the situation. He recites the biblical passage again and allows the robbers to take the cash and leave. Jules and Vincent leave the diner with the briefcase in hand. The end.
All right. Well read, Ken, as always. Let's talk about the first time we saw this movie. We'll kick it off with Ken. When's the first time you saw it? Cable?
Yes, cable.
Shocking.
All over the place. I watched it like bits here, bits there. I was really confused by this movie because I always seem to miss the part where Travolta gets killed. I always seem to skip over that part whenever I come into the movie. So when I get to the end, I didn't realize he died. It was like years before I realized that he got killed when I finally was able to watch it straight through.
Very cool. For me, I actually still have my original VHS copy I bought from Blockbuster in the mid-90s, which is when I saw it. Still great. How about you, Ted?
My wife sold my VHS copy at a
I'm
yard
so
sale.
sorry.
Yeah. It would have been 1994 or right after the Oscars in 1995. I can remember it was on a weekend. It was like being hit over the head. I couldn't even believe what I had just watched.
Okay.
And I immediately rewatched it again. Really, essentially, my life in movies, like a couple of different phases, where it's before 2001, A Space Odyssey, then that period of time after, but then after Pulp Fiction. Because I don't watch movies the same way after Pulp Fiction. It changed everything for me. It opened up an entirely new world as far as my love of movies goes.
Was this director first, or was it Stanley Kubrick that changed how you looked at movies? Which one was first?
It would have been Tarantino and then Kubrick, because I came to Kubrick a little bit after Tarantino. And it was actually Pulp Fiction that got me to watch Kubrick's movie, The Killing, which is one of Kubrick's first movies, which Tarantino loved a lot. That's when I got deep into Kubrick. I mean, of course I had seen The Shining and I had seen Full Metal Jacket, but I had not been deep into Kubrick until after Tarantino. Like I said, I watched The Killing, which is one of my favorite heist movies of all time now. It tells the story in a non-linear way like Pulp Fiction.
Cool. Adam, how about you?
Well,
Apparently
I'm an OG hipster because I saw it in the theater.
Look at you.
Lucky.
Granted, I was 15 years old. Similar to what Ted said, it blew my mind. There's only a few movies that I remember that changed like movie-going experiences, and this was the first one. The biggest scene, and we'll jump in this later, of course, but I've never reacted away in my entire life in a movie theater when the GIMP scene happened. Specifically, and like I said, we'll go into this later, I know this, the Bruce Willis escaping scene. Like, I'm a huge horror movie fan. I've watched all kinds of crazy shit. But this scene, when him going to escape, and then you realize, oh, I got to save Marcellus, and then looking at each weapon, I mean, my heart was pounding. Like, it was insane. And very few movies have done that. And I'll admit, I didn't see Reservoir Dogs till after Pulp Fiction.
Me too.
You know, I saw Pulp Fiction in the theater, blew my mind. I've never seen a movie like this in my entire life. And I went right to see Reservoir Dogs. Had I seen Reservoir Dogs first, I'd probably be like, oh, okay, this isn't as insane because it's, you know, not similar movie, but similar in the sense of how they mixed around and whatnot. But yeah,
that seems to be a common trait.
nuts.
I know for me and a lot of people, we saw Pulp Fiction first and then Reservoir Dogs. So you're 15.
scene.
This is a hard
15.
R.
Don't tell mom.
I was
Don't
going to
tell
say,
mom I went to the
I'll
movie.
be sure not to because I know she's an avid listener to my podcast. How'd you get in the theater?
I don't know, man.
They just
honestly.
didn't card you. You just rolled in.
I wasn't accompanied by an adult.
Right.
It must have been. I want to say Eric B was there. Shouts out to Eric B.
There you go.
I think it was him and I. Maybe Chad.
Not Eric B and Rakeem, right? This is your friend Eric
No,
B.
no,
That's
B.
what I
Last
was
name
thinking
B.
there, Eric.
Yeah,
That's
I'm sure
awesome.
you
His
were.
last name is.
Sure you were.
Yeah.
I wish. No, his last name is B-E-E. It was nuts. There's only so many movies that blow my mind, and that was definitely one of them.
Okay.
Actually, the first one. I'll say the first one.
This is one of those rare cases too. Like, there are certain movies I'm glad that I seen them at the age that I did. Pulp Fiction is one of those rare movies that I wish I could do the Men in Black flashy thing and I could see it and experience it again for the first time.
No,
And
absolutely.
one of the only movies that I would do that to.
Even with 2022 eyes?
Yes.
Years, I should say.
Because this movie is just, it's so awesome.
Yeah, but like Ken's saying, 2022 eyes, man. Like, you know, I haven't watched this in years, and the rewatch I did recently, you know, it's different. It's not as, I mean, we're all desensitized, right? You know, 15-year-old Adam seeing that was like, holy shit. You know, now it's like, oh, that's nothing.
Right.
That's nothing. Like the GIMP. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is crazy. This guy's getting fucked in the ass. And I'm like, what? You know, but now I'm like, oh, cool. I can Google that on Pornhub. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It's totally different now.
I
See guys coming out of a box,
no idea
all dressed
either.
up in leather.
Right, exactly.
I-
Like,
It's
wake
like,
the GIMP
oh, yeah,
up. Like, what are they doing? Yeah.
Yeah.
And how
I
about that
had
poor
no
GIMP,
idea.
huh? Jeez.
He doesn't get a bed, he just gets a crate.
Right.
It's like locked
It's a
up.
whole.
I love how they like chain him up,
Yeah.
you know, like as if he's going to run away,
Right.
and he's all about guarding Bruce Willis.
Oh.
It doesn't make sense.
What's the purpose of the GIMP if he's not
don't know,
part of
man.
That's for a different
How do you
podcast.
fit in that trunk?
Explaining to Ken what the GIMP is, I think
Oh, yeah.
is a whole nother podcast.
Well, I just don't know why he wasn't in the room with the other two because it seems like they are performing some kind of weird sexual act in there with.
Because he's not meant for that,
Marcellus.
man.
he's not. He's a
That's
slave.
his role is totally different.
Yeah.
And a guard dog, apparently.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
not a very good guard dog because once he gets
no, he's
released,
chained
he
up.
doesn't do anything.
He's chained up and they got the zipper across his mouth.
Right.
Hopefully, QT will be putting his stuff out on 4K soon. When he does, it's going to be a big deal.
Well, Once Upon a Time is on 4K, obviously.
Yeah.
Recent.
That's the only one, though.
But the old ones, none of the other ones are.
Not
Wow.
yet.
So I like the way this movie starts. I like the way it opens up in the coffee shop with Pumpkin and Honeybee kind of discussing their relationship, what they've done in the past. You don't even know how this thing is going to go. I mean, it's completely into left field on how this thing goes. You think they're going to go right into some type of a robbery of the thing, and then it goes completely into something else. And I think it's cool. I like the way this movie is edited in this series of events, if you will.
I like their demeanor. I like how it seems like a normal couple that just start talking about bank
And
robberies.
she's so nice to the waitress, too, at the coffee.
Oh, yeah.
You know, she's like, oh, thank you so much.
Then it
They
turns
are in love.
Then it turns
They are
bad
in
when he
love.
calls the waitress
Mhm.
garçon.
Garçon.
Yeah.
Garçon.
That's a
But
boy.
it's those little things like that. It seems like you're eavesdropping on a real life situation.
Definitely.
Like, the waitress doesn't need to come up and say, well, garçon means boy in French. But here it does. It's that is so different. And it's like you're eavesdropping on these two people, and they feel real. They don't feel like characters in this messed up play we're going to watch. It grabs you by the balls. They admit that they're going to get up and they're going to do this, but you don't expect her to get up and just point the gun out and just say,
Scream.
I'm going to execute every one of you motherfuckers. It's like, whoa. And then it immediately into the Dick Dale Miserlou.
Oh yeah,
It's
the
like,
freeze. Yeah,
wow,
it's awesome,
man.
dude. Granted, all I see is Rose from So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Yes. Yes.
Great movie.
Yeah. You know you're in for something different. Because the first time we see it, you're like, okay, these two characters, this is going to be the two characters we're going to follow.
Right.
And immediately you're right on to two new characters.
Yeah.
And we don't see him till the end.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like you said, it's a nonchalant conversation of just robbing liquor stores and whatnot. Yeah.
And you go into the credits, and it's like them in the car with the radio on, and it's kind of changing channels a little bit until then you have the conversation between
a little Cool in the Gang.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's like a thing, because like in Reservoir Dogs, it's the radio, it's this K-Billy super
Stephen
sounds
Wright,
of the 70s.
right? Yeah, Stephen Wright.
Stephen
Yeah.
Wright, yes. And then you're in the car with Jules and Vincent. Here again, we're right into another conversation that these two dudes are just having in a car about one guy's experience.
Who are these two guys in black suits talking about?
Oh yeah.
His time in Amsterdam. It's like, what does this have to do with the movie?
It's like,
what's
why
Vinnie Barbarino doing?
Vinnie Barbarino
Right, exactly.
doing here, right? Yeah.
Why was this guy in Amsterdam?
I have
At
theories
the
on
end,
that.
we can only think about what
Well, it's
I
because
have
Quentin
theories.
Tarantino was in Amsterdam. That's why.
exactly. Another reason that makes this movie so amazing is these crazy little conversations. It's the conversation about just a random thing about what they call different fast food items in other countries. And now, Royale with cheese, it's in the lexicon. People
absolutely.
use it
Absolutely.
all the time.
Like I said, I was in Germany and my ass ordered one, and it's like they're looking at me like this fucking American. Here we go. Sure enough, they had mayonnaise and fries. Like the same thing in Europe. I was that guy. I went to McDonald's in Germany on purpose, and then I used a credit card, and they fucking blew their minds because they hate credit cards.
Oh, really?
They had to go in the back and get a reader.
Oh.
He like rolled his eyes. Yeah.
What are they? What are they? Cash? They euros?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All euro?
Yeah, cash. And I'm like, I whip out a credit card, and literally the guy walked all the way in the back of McDonald's and grabbed a card reader so I could do it because I'm the guy with a credit card.
After you spit in your food.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, this is a while ago.
That's the
It might
mayonnaise.
be changed now.
Yeah,
I
it's
can't
the
speak
mayo.
on behalf now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, something different.
It's a fun conversation. It's enjoyable between the two. You feel like you're part of the conversation, and I think that's what I like about Tarantino movies is when they're talking, you feel like you're that third wheel. You're not adding into the conversation, but you are a part of the conversation because they're allowing you to listen to it. And we see that even at the end when they're back in the restaurant talking about the breakfast. And they have somewhat of a brotherly type of conversations going on throughout the whole movie, which I don't know if they were paired up before because, he was gone for a while. I don't know if they're just back together or if they're brand new. We don't really
think
know.
so. Yeah, I wonder. Because he says like, oh, you're lightening up. Vegas says that to Jules. So I wonder if they're fairly new together. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because Vegas been gone. Yeah.
There's a rapport that they seem to have with each other, that they're comfortable with each other to talk about things. And of course, you get the iconic Tarantino shot from looking up out of the trunk.
Right.
I was waiting for a body the first time I saw it. I was like,
should have brought shotguns.
Should have had shotguns.
Should have had shotguns. We definitely should have shotguns.
I love the conversation that they have, too, as they're just walking up to the apartment.
Yeah.
Just shooting the shit about nothing, waiting for the exact time to knock on the door.
They wait like that's too early. And they literally finish their conversation with foot massages. 2 more minutes and then come back.
They take 30 seconds to walk away, and then they come right back. Like, what was 30 seconds? I mean,
but what's
they know they're going to kill people.
Yeah, but what's cool is you as the viewer, it's almost like you're confused too because you're still at the door and you
Yep,
watch them
exactly.
go through the other door
And,
to finish their
Right.
conversation. And it's like these guys took a pause before they went in to do their business to finish this conversation.
Here's the question for.
I was going to ask the same
Here's
thing.
the
dude.
question
Do
though
it.
for you guys: do you agree with Vincent or Jules when it comes to the foot massage?
Totally, Vincent.
I have to agree with Vincent.
Yeah,
I mean,
Absolutely.
I understand where Jules is coming from,
It's not in the same
tossing a
ballpark,
guy out
right?
of a 4-story window.
Not even the motherfucking same sport.
That's
right.
And I love the dialogue. And the dialogue
Yeah,
here
oh,
is
it's
so
brilliant.
awesome too. It's
And like I said, Vegas says it. He's like, would you give a dude a foot massage?
and then he looks at you, fuck
There
you.
you go.
And he just does fuck when you
Fuck
you know he's lost the conversation because that's how you talk to your buddies. Once you've got that guy to pause, your buddy to pause, and he looks at you and says, fuck you, you know that you've just won.
Yep.
It's
And
like-
he keeps digging after that.
Yeah.
My feet are kind of tired.
You're laying your hands on
It's
somebody's
sensual.
wife
Yeah,
in a
absolutely.
familiar way.
Yeah, exactly.
Outside of a family member, that's going to be sensual or sexual, either one.
I mean,
so.
I ain't-
So
rub my
if
mom's
we
feet.
rubbed
I'm just
Ted's
saying.
wife's feet, he might get upset.
I probably
He hasn't
would.
yet.
He hasn't
Oh,
yet,
wow.
but he might.
Yeah. Anyway, this also introduces one of Tarantino's other things, which is the
He's
foot
like,
fetish.
fuck you. Yeah.
Hey, Southwest tickets. I can be there.
Yeah.
I got the lotion.
It puts the lotion on the skin.
Or it gets the hose again. So it's one of the first times that I experienced this in a movie. That's like how you talk to your friends. Real life dialogue. It's not
Absolutely.
this contrived storytelling back and forth that I love in the movies. This guy speaks the same way that I do.
It's
When
almost
I'm-
like he's ad-libbing.
Right. When
It
I'm
feels ad-libbed.
in real life, I say fuck all the time. That's how I was when I saw this. I was like, "Oh my god, this is how I talk."
And the great thing about this conversation is they go back and forth, yelling at each other, screaming at each other. But at the end, when it's time to share a cab, they're like, I want to go out for breakfast. And you know,
Right.
he's like, yeah, let's go out to breakfast. They went through all that crap, mostly of what Vincent calls by shooting the guy in the head.
Yeah.
Which
I
we'll
mean,
get
the
to,
face.
which is one of the funniest things in the
Yeah.
whole
I shot Martin in the face.
Yeah.
Stop, Marvin.
But
That's
I
like
mean,
the craziest day ever.
Yeah.
but it's that relationship that you get to see there where they go out for breakfast after everything
Now,
they
is that
went
the
through.
first? Do you think that's the first breakfast they had?
No, I don't think so.
You think that was the first invite?
Yeah, I think so. Because
Because the
of
way,
think
the,
so.
way, the way Travolta asked and the way, I don't know. That's
yeah,
kinda what I
because
picked up
the
when I
way he
watched
asked, he doesn't eat swine. That's something you would know of a friend
Yeah,
kind of
I
early.
feel like
True.
going back to the relationship, like
True.
they're probably kind of fresh with each other. You know, like Vega being back from Amsterdam. I think that might be the first time they actually hung out outside of work.
Yep.
Maybe it's a bonding moment with the Bonnie incident. You know, everything
Yeah.
went down. I don't know.
And it's always Travolta's in the bathroom when gun plays. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
It's like he's
Reading
always,
like old French comics or whatever. It is.
Yeah, is it a pulp novel?
I think it's like a French old French. Like,
Okay.
I might have listened to it a long time ago. Yeah, I think it's like a French comic, but I could be wrong.
And then after you've had this really interesting conversation, it's like, okay, it can't keep up this pace, right? And then they go into the apartment of
Go in the apartment,
Of
talk to Brett. Yeah.
another
and-
conversation.
Yes.
This is a movie
Right.
of conversations.
Oh, yeah, dialogue, man.
you know these guys, they have guns. It's the old Chekhov's rule, Chekhov's gun. They're not going to show the gun and not use it.
Yeah.
They're there to do some damage. And
They're wearing suits.
exactly.
Travolta's got a bolo tie.
Right.
He means business.
And the Jerry curl. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
You know, originally
It's
he was
just
supposed to
so
have an
awesome.
afro on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they brought the
Yeah,
wrong
yeah.
wig out.
How about
And he's
that?
like, I love it.
Yeah.
How
I
about
love
it?
Yeah,
What
he's-
an awesome coincidence.
Yeah.
that
the
how
what
that
ifs.
happened.
Yeah.
The way Jules brings everything out, he puts you, the viewer, and these guys that are talking there who they know they're in deep shit. The moment Jules and Vincent walk in, they know the shit's going down. But you as the viewer, all of a sudden he puts you at ease. It gets me every time he sits there and he shoots the guy on the couch. Whoa.
And he actually lifted his leg up prior.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
he walked up, he's like, no, relax. He's like,
Yeah.
puts his leg, he actually grabs his foot
Yeah.
and puts it on the couch.
I don't
It's-
understand the reason for killing some of them, but not.
Marvin?
Yeah,
Well,
why
this-
did they save his life?
Marvin has some sort of working relationship between Marcellus Wallace and these guys. Whether Marvin was the guy who introduced Brett and Flock of Seagulls and then hand cannon to Marcellus Wallace to get a deal done,
Yeah, everyone else is expendable.
Right.
Clearly.
Well, he ends up being expendable too because he gets shot in the
Well,
He
sure, right.
wasn't-
Accidentally,
but it was an accident. He probably ran over a bumper.
Over a bump. Yeah.
And I have some questions about Vincent's ability to be a hitman because he doesn't seem to be a very good one. Maybe that's why he had to go to Amsterdam, because he effed up a hit situation and had to lay low for a while, because it seems like he's not very bright in some aspects. That scene seems to be one of them. I just think Vincent is kind of stupid a little bit, unfortunately.
Yeah. He.
I got a number of examples as we go down this movie, but this scene is great. I'm talking about the burger, by the way.
Of Vince's stupidity, you have a number of scenes to talk about?
I have a number of scenes about his stupidity, yes.
Okay.
But I love the burger. I love talking about I love the fact that he eats it and drinks his Sprite.
He drinks the whole Sprite.
Yeah,
he does. But by the way, does this Kahuna burger exist in California?
No, it doesn't. That whole alpha male dominance of him taking a bite of his burger and drinking that entire drink, just staring him down. Yeah, it's just setting it up.
How he asked too. He's very, very polite. About it. What?
What? Say what again?
Say what again?
And that's something I use now. When Michelle says "what," I'll start to go into that. I'm like, "What? Say what again?" And then when she does it more than once or twice.
Do you speak English?
Does Marcellus Wallace look like a bitch? And you feel for Brett at that point because you're like, what?
And you don't know how they're deceiving him. You don't know why they kept the briefcase. You don't know what.
No idea.
Well,
no idea.
That's
no idea. You don't know if he really deserves what he's about to get.
That's
how cool is that scene when Vega opens up that suitcase? He's got the cigarette dangling.
I love it. It's awesome.
He's like, yeah.
And that's the introduction to the MacGuffin.
The MacGuffin.
And we get to see it one more time later on at the restaurant. We get to see it again.
And it plays such a pivotal role in why these two guys are here and why they end up walking out of the diner. That's so cool because he pops it open and then the light comes on and it's like, we're cool. They got what they came for. And you would think now the time for talking is done, but then Jules whips into the Ezekiel 25:17.
He's got to do his shtick. Just like Jack Nicholson's the Joker.
Exactly.
I like the sound of it.
Right.
Do we talk about the MacGuffin now? Do we go into it a little bit?
I was going to ask that too.
Let's bring it up. Let's do it.
Your first watch ever. What did you think that it was?
I just thought it was gold, to be honest.
I did too at first, but I'm like, it's too light.
Same here.
It's something that's lighting up, something bright.
So the major theme, or at least if you go on the internet, is the fact that it's Marcellus's soul. But
the Band-Aid.
I would think
666.
First of all,
666,
how do you know what a soul looks like? The reaction to it is not enough to see a soul.
Tim Roth's reaction to it is like, wow, is that what I think it is?
But if you open up a suitcase of gold,
or jewels,
but it'd be pretty heavy though, wouldn't it?
Well, now you brought up jewels. This is one of the other theories that's been going around for a long time, that those are the diamonds that got from the robbery in Reservoir Dogs.
Oh. Vincent Vega's brother. We do see Steve Buscemi. He's a waiter at Jack Rabbit Slim's.
Buddy Holly.
He's Buddy Holly.
Yeah.
So maybe he served his time because we
and a very angry Buddy Holly too. Did you notice?
Exactly. Before the final shot, we do hear in the background the police arresting Steve Buscemi's character. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that it could be the diamonds. But I don't know. When I first saw it, I was possessed by wanting to know what was in this.
What's in the box?
Exactly. What's in the box?
Gwyneth Paltrow's head.
Wow.
Promises.
My guess was that it was heroin. Vincent, the scene of him shooting up, he kind of has that reverence for the drug, and it would make sense if these guys are drug dealers, because you don't know.
But there's one more that I kind of like because of the fact that Quentin Tarantino is such a movie nut. They say this is just an homage to a movie called Kiss Me Deadly from 1955, where the same thing kind of happens. They open up the case and it glows. There's a glow about it.
That makes
And I think that's what it is. It's just an homage to that film. And that's why Quentin Tarantino doesn't really have probably an answer for it. It's probably just an homage, but he likes people to think about it just like Stanley Kubrick.
I was going to say, it's like Kubrick. Leave it to interpretation, right?
That's what Quentin has said throughout the years. What's in the briefcase is whatever you want to be
Exactly.
in that briefcase. In that way, it's perfect. Even though it'll drive me crazy sometimes, and I'll get on a kick where
it's the quintessential MacGuffin.
Exactly. It's perfect.
Yeah.
And you're 100% right, Ken, with the homage to the movie. That's what Quentin does the best. He knows how to take a movie genre, and this is film noir, and turn it on its head, just like he does in Kill Bill when he turns the karate movies, the kung fu movies, and turns them on their head. Or he takes like the spaghetti western and then makes it his own in Hateful Eight or Django Unchained.
Or Glorious Bastards, World War II.
Right. And then the blaxploitation movie, which is Jackie Brown.
Jackie Brown.
I love Jackie Brown.
Love it.
Come on, Jackie Brown.
He knows how to do that. And at the end of the day, Quentin is one of us. He is a movie fanatic, and he loves everything movies. That's what makes him so cool.
But he's a terrible actor.
He's not a good actor.
Hot take.
You didn't like him as Jimmy? Hey.
Hot take.
Yeah.
Oh.
But
I liked him, though, in From Dusk to Dawn. I played that character.
I liked him in From Dusk to Dawn. I liked him in Desperado, too.
The killing of Brett there, I don't know if I really like it ending there and cutting there.
Do you like the Flash? Do you like the Flash?
Yeah, and then just going to another scene. I don't know
Flash
if I like
of gold.
it. Just because when we come back to it later on, what we thought happened happens. Like, I was hoping that something else happened and them killing him. We knew he killed them.
There was a random Arquette in the bathroom. Yeah.
That guy looked like a store-bought Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah. Passed away in the last, 5 or 10 years. He committed suicide. But
right.
Oh, shit.
Way to bring it down,
Ted. Man. Yeah, way to bring it down.
Alexis Arquette.
Oh, we're talking about a movie about
he was the fun.
People, so.
He was the real funny singer in The Wedding Singer.
Yes.
He's the one that was obsessed with the
Do
culture.
you really
club.
want to hurt me?
Oh, he's George?
Yep.
Yeah.
One more time.
Yeah.
One more time.
Buscemi. Love that movie.
That is a classic.
That's right. Wow. I can see it now.
We hear that Vincent's going to be taking Mia Wallace out on not a date.
We have our first introduction to Butch Coolidge.
Tony Rocky Horror, man.
He got thrown out of a 4-story window.
Went through glass.
I mean, I'm glad if I had a speech impediment. If that's all I got out of that, that's probably a good thing.
He's black and Samoan.
Yeah.
400 pounds.
When we open up here, we see Vincent and Jules are in much different clothes than when we left them.
Walking into the restaurant or the bar or whatever.
The
Yes.
strip
Represent
club.
Santa Cruz Banana Slug.
Yes, right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Guys look like total dorks.
Which looks
Good.
a lot like the strip club that they were in Reservoir Dogs, too. The lighting is almost identical.
A little bit.
It's that red. We get our first glimpse of Butch and Marcellus.
Not right away with Marcellus. We only get to see the back of his head.
We see the back
head.
of his head, and that's where we get the Band-Aid on the back of the head. But we know that that's Marcellus, and he's setting up a fight, and we get to see the tense interaction between Vincent and Butch.
Old reference boxer taunts.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
Punchy. And it's all setting up to where they're needling him, the bartender and Jules are needling Vincent about his nervousness over take Mia out. After that, after we get the fact that we see how uptight Vincent is, we meet Eric Stoltz's character.
Phenomenal Eric Stoltz in this.
Rocking
Yes.
that robe.
Yes.
Yep,
Rocking
the robe and the Speed Racer t-shirt.
Oh, yes.
Perfect drug dealer stoner character, and he's describing the different strands of heroin that he's going to try to see selling Vincent.
Really doing the hardcore push for the higher end one too.
For the Madman.
Yes.
The wad of cash he pulls out.
Yeah.
We bought the Madman. Probably Mia would have been dead right on the spot.
He did.
Did he?
Yeah,
He did. That's why.
I thought he said
he bought 3,000 of the Madman, and then he said if it's as good as he says it, he'll come back for another 1,500. So we know that
shit on her face.
Yeah, we know that Vincent has a drug problem here. So
no,
a little bit.
But of course, Travolta's a Scientologist. He doesn't take drugs. The way that he approached this,
just Travolta
Wait, real quick, was he
being
a Scientologist then?
Yeah.
Was he a Scientologist?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He's like an OT8 or whatever that level
Oh,
is.
yeah.
he's up there with Cruise.
He's like a brown belt, and
he's an OG8.
Yeah.
My brother, a former Scientologist in a prior life.
No,
So,
I just watched
him and
documentaries.
Leah
on it.
Remini. So
yeah, that's what I. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've watched all of it. Yeah, I watched that whole series too.
so have I. So have
L.
know
I.
what?
Hubbard, man.
Before we talk further about the drug addiction, I just want to say when they're back at Marcellus's, Vincent and Butch meet for the first time, you know they're going to meet again. So I thought that
You
was a
know
nice
it.
way to kind of
Oh, yeah.
end
Oh,
that
absolutely.
scene.
Just
That
dead
was pretty
stare eyes. Yeah.
Everything that Quentin does, there's a reason. There's nothing that's out of place here. The way Travolta approached this is he had somebody describe to him what shooting up was like, and the way the guy described it, he said, drink a bunch of tequila and then get into a hot bath. It's one of those crazy scenes that it almost feels very David Lynch-esque when
Yeah,
he's
good
in the
call,
when he's
good
in
call.
that car.
Rear projection.
Yes.
Projection in the
That's very
background.
David Lynch.
It's so different than anything else. It's like, oh wow, we're on a trip here.
He's romanticizing heroin.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yes. And I like you just talk about the projection background. I like it here where I despise it later on in the taxi.
Let me guess.
But
Yeah.
here
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
works perfectly.
Well, that's
Right.
like more Hitchcock in the other scene because it's like black and white and then the
Right,
eyes.
right.
And I just love the look on his face. The look on his face is that of content. He's just cool. And he's like a little bobblehead that's driving his car. It's just
Yeah,
little,
his
little
Malibu.
wobbling back and forth.
Yeah, I don't know if you shoot up heroin, you could just drive a car like that. I mean, I've never
Yeah,
used
probably
those.
not.
Probably
I-
shouldn't.
Yeah, I would
But
highly
you probably
doubt
shouldn't
that.
drive a car with a gun
Or, you know,
in your hand
go on
when
a
there's
date.
somebody in the back
That's right.
seat either.
Or your finger on the trigger.
Yeah.
We get the sense too that he was so jacked up. Between Jules and the bartender, they've really messed him up over this.
Oh, yeah. He's
this
preparing
date.
himself.
And that's what
Yeah.
he has to do to relax to be able to do this.
I think they did a good job of preparing him for this.
Oh, they needled the hell out of it.
When he has to choose either to stay or go, he is choosing to go. And
Yeah,
I
because he
think
knows
that's-
that he'll be killed. The next scene, we see him walking into Marcellus Wallace's house. And of course, now that's become a very famous gif of him looking both ways. But
Oblivious
it's
to the intercom system.
I don't get the intercom system. So
Well, it's on purpose.
It's
I
a
think on
security
purpose.
system, if you
It's
will.
is it
Like
no,
he
when-
talks, she can hear him.
Yeah.
But she answers
Yeah, it's a
him
control thing.
when he talks. So either she's reading
Yep.
his lips,
yeah,
or
she
she's
hears
reading
him.
his lips. Yeah,
Because she has an entire
Jeez.
display of all this high tech in '94 security system. I think she has mics. I mean, I
She's-
think it's more of a control thing.
she's
Oh, yeah.
got a very Sliver-esque setup
Yeah.
going on there.
with her feet.
Liver reference.
So
Yeah.
they just show her feet when she's walking in. So that's that little
Well, that's
slither
another
of
foot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
what you're talking
Little
about.
did we know back then about the foot fetish.
Yep.
When I rewatched it now, I'm like, oh yeah, there it is.
Yep. And we start with the foot massage talk too. He plays it so cool.
I like Vincent here. I like
I
Vincent
like how
with
she
me.
comes.
Yeah.
She shows up. Your wife shows up during the foot massage talk.
I know,
Yeah.
right? She shows
Right.
up right for
Timing.
the foot massage. part.
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing, Michelle. Perfect timing.
And the way he's playing everything is just so smooth. And she does too. She's never met this guy before, but then we go to one of my favorite parts of the whole movie. When they walk into Jackrabbit Slim's.
Oh, that place is amazing.
Why
I wish it
this
was
has
real.
not become a thing?
It-
Exactly.
It doesn't exist.
One
No, I know.
1,000%, Ken. I want to go to Jackrabbit
Like
Slim's.
why?
There-
Because of this movie did this place not get?
Exactly.
Instead we get like Planet Hollywood. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
Like
We
it's
get Planet
just
Hollywood.
yeah.
You get one like this, but then you change it. You have certain like sections. One's the 50s, one's
Dude,
the
in a
60s,
car?
70s.
I'm sitting in a car.
80s.
I
That's
know
amazing.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
right.
The whole idea is so cool. And of course, this is the most expensive set. They actually built
Yep.
this up from the ground up. There's a throwback to American Graffiti, just to
Mhm.
name one movie. The references all through. I mean, of course, they talk about Buddy Holly as their
Waiter.
waiter, but then they talk about Marilyn Monroe, James Dean. But there's
James
Zorro.
Mainfield.
She had the night off.
Right.
Right. As they're walking by, you see Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin. Ricky Nelson is singing, and
Yeah.
Ricky Nelson. Yeah. He's
And
on the
of course-
soundtrack, right?
oh yeah,
I enjoyed the song when they're coming in. I like it. That's
mm-hmm.
not a full out impersonation, but it's a nice homage to that
And
style of
it's-
music.
And it's cool because then Mia does the square, and he does the outline of the square. I always think that's pretty
AKA
cool.
a rectangle.
Yeah,
Right.
rectangle. Yes,
It's a little dated.
But-
Now milkshakes are more than $5.
Mhm.
but-
$5.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I love
But-
it. For being a Scientologist, he's definitely a very good smoker on screen.
Yeah,
I don't know if smoking's a bad thing in Scientology.
it is.
I have no idea.
He-
Probably.
He can pull it off, man. I mean, he was
But
crushing it.
we all know with Scientology, like with any cult, if you will, or any type of corrupt
It's a cult.
organization.
Except for the ones who listen to this podcast, we think it's a great organization.
Oh, yes.
I respect Scientology.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, David Miscavige, please don't sue us.
Yes, right.
David is listening. Where's your wife?
Where is she?
Exactly.
Right.
Fucker.
I do like it when they order and they only have two choices of how to cook the meat.
Burnt
There's
as hell
no
or
bloody as hell. And then you have the, subtle, the black and white milkshake.
Yeah, Amos and Andy or Dean Martin and Lewis. We're put into a conversation, a real life conversation, where it ends up with them being in an awkward silence, which happens.
Yeah.
It's like, what do I say now?
And
it's like
happens again when they get back to the house. That's even more awkward.
And how upset she gets about the accusation that her husband killed the guy over a foot
You didn't
massage.
kill him. You put him in the hospital and fucked
Put him
up
in the
how he
hospital.
spoke.
Yes, that's right.
Fucked up how he talks.
Honestly, like you said, like just going back to all the Tarantino stuff, right? It's just regular people talking. And the way Vega, Vincent handles it, like, it's awesome. It's just a regular conversation.
So natural.
Yeah, natural. There's the comfortable silence.
Yeah,
I think it's more natural
normal.
with John Travolta's character. Vincent is more natural than I actually think Uma Thurman is. I think Uma Thurman's is a little bit forced, a little bit acted, whereas John Travolta's kind of seems more natural.
It reminds me of like Kevin Smith movies where like Kevin Smith dialogue, it's a lot of it's forced.
Mm-hmm.
Like I always think back of like Mallrats with Landon. I forget which twin it is. It has like 50 words in one sentence. It's very forced. So she has some of that. Whereas Travolta's very chill and
she's a little fast with how she talks it, and it makes it sound like it's not natural.
She probably wasn't used to this wordy of a piece. I mean, because there's a lot of words here. Because it is a natural conversation. Here again, there's little parts of here that makes these people real, like tangible real life. And it's the whole idea of, but you can't be offended if I ask this question. And her reaction to that is like, you can't say that. That's real life. People talk like that. It's like, you can't be offended.
But the way she delivers that, I think that line is forced. I think that feels like she's reading off of like a cue card almost to a certain extent. But when we talk about real, let's talk about the dancing. I love the dancing here because that is real. I love it when Travolta is on his tippy toes doing that dance. That looks like that could hurt.
Dude,
I'm not a dancer, but that looks like that could hurt.
When people take their shoes off, dance competition, it's real.
He's good. It's time to get serious.
All business.
But
he danced and look who's talking. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know.
And the thing across the eyes, that was like a big thing for people for a while after that movie came out. Everybody was doing
the Batman.
Adam West does it better though.
It's the Batman.
Burt Ward, a.k.a. Burt Young.
That's right.
Exactly.
Eric's very happy that we were able to bring Burt Ward into this
That's
conversation.
Right. Burt Young as Robin.
I know that Saturday Night Fever is probably what people will say is like the quintessential cool John Travolta.
Not people in the 20s and 30s.
For me, Travolta will never be as cool as he is in that dance scene with Uma Thurman in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree.
Like his entire career?
Yeah, he's so awesome.
No Vinnie Barbarino strut?
See, I love Welcome Back, Kotter. I'm one of the few people who I've probably seen every episode of Kotter.
I love Gabe Kaplan's jokes at the beginning of every episode.
Gabe Kaplan.
But Travolta is cool here.
Well, he's cool in this whole movie, man.
Yeah.
And this is like, we talk about the comeback, right? All jokes aside that he's talking, haha. But like, this is legit. And then afterwards, then you start getting the Broken Arrow. Broken Arrow Travolta is like, oh, he's a crazy bad guy. And then you get that every movie.
Right, Face Off.
The same guy.
Face Off, yeah.
Oh
Face Off is a fun little movie.
That's fun bad.
Great.
I don't think Vincent's character is cool throughout the whole movie. I think there's parts like here at the restaurant, he's extremely cool. When he's around Mia, he's cool, except for when he sees Mia later on. He has to let her know that he had a good time. But my problem with him is more that I don't think he's a good hitman. I just think he sucks at his job.
Yeah, he's probably not.
Jules runs a show when it comes to that duo. He's the guy in the back every time.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
And Jules the reason why he gets killed is because Jules is retired.
Well, yeah, that's
one foot out the door.
Point.
He has, yeah.
Jules is gone by then. Vincent, if Jules was there with him,
this doesn't happen. Vincent will be in the bathroom, and Jules will be there waiting with the gun. Who leaves the gun on the countertop?
We'll get there.
Take a long crap.
Complacency.
Yeah,
complacency.
Yeah, we'll get there.
That's just one of many problems I have with Vincent.
Another human moment from Vincent. He's looking at himself in the mirror. He's like, "You're gonna go home. You're gonna jerk off, and you're gonna end the night, and you're not gonna do anything with Mia." And then that's when we get the cutaway to her finding the baggie. You know she's been doing coke. We watched her do coke.
She did it before.
God damn.
Why is
God damn. She powders her nose at Jack Rabbit Slim's. You want to shout at her. Don't do this. This is not what you think it is.
When they enter her place after the dance, I mean, they're very close now.
Oh, yeah.
Really close. Yeah.
Yeah. They're a little tipsy.
She's got her jacket on.
Right.
His jacket,
That's no Tony Rocky Horror.
The awkward silence. I like the fact that Vincent's in love here, because he's in love. I really think so. I think
it's taken everything he has not to have sex with her.
She's
put it that way.
You know what I'm saying? Like, she's unique.
She is.
Later on, when he sees her
never met
again,
a woman like her.
No.
You know
and that's why I think he's in love. Because I think later on, when we see them talk again, when Butch escapes and they're trying to find out where he's like this little puppy dog talking to her, and she's like
the boss is there too, though.
But that's why she kind of like doesn't really acknowledge him much.
Got to play cool, man.
Got to play it cool. Which he's not playing cool at that particular time. That's what I'm saying.
Actually,
I don't think he was expecting to see her. She caught him off guard. But, I mean, he's having a real-life moment. He walks out to the most horrific thing he could possibly ever imagine.
Mind.
When you notice, too, when he walks out, he's like, he's not going to have a drink, right? Because before he's going to have one drink, go home, jerk off. But when he comes out, he's like, "Hey, I'm going to take off."
Not even going to go there.
Oh crap! You're drooling on the floor there.
How long was he in there? First of all,
enough for her to just
blow. He likes his bathroom breaks.
He's like, I got to take a piss. More like a shit, because she's sitting there hanging out, dancing to Urge Overkill.
Right.
She starts snorting heroin. She fucking ends up falling. I mean, that's a long time, and he's tossing himself.
If we're going to hammer something a little bit, is the time it takes for her after she snorts it. I have no idea, because I've never been in.
You don't think
heroin?
I was surprised to see her nose is bleeding like within 5 seconds.
Well, you can snort heroin.
Yeah, of course.
That's the first. That's like the first. It might be
way you start the strong stuff and the fact that she had already done enough coke. Probably
that's the thing.
But who the heck keeps a bunch of heroin in their jacket?
Vince does.
Vince
I guess Vince, because
and they're out of balloons. If it was a balloon, if it was a balloon, she probably would have known better.
Right.
If she would have pulled out a balloon, she'd be like, "Oh, this ain't coke.
This is heroin." And because Tarantino is the way he is, I guarantee you that's something that went through his mind.
Oh, I'm
to
sure.
set that up. But
because he tried it first.
But I mean, the reason that it's more expensive is it's more pure, and she's probably never done heroin, so she immediately does like this massive speedball. It's too much.
Phoenix.
And let's face it, man. When her head hit the ground, she's dead. There is no way she is driving around the car and they're putting adrenaline in her chest.
She's drooling. I mean,
she's dead.
She's coming out of her mouth.
I know, but I mean, realistically, she's done.
And they're taking their sweet time deciding how to take care of her, like stab her in the heart. They're taking their sweet ass time to revive her. She should have been dead 10 times over.
Get a Sharpie.
Yeah, get a Sharpie.
Another intense moment.
This is the one part of the movie where you really have to suspend some disbelief.
Sure.
Because it all sets up this tension for one scene. And that whole scene leads to the shot of adrenaline into the heart. She hugely wakes up like that.
Yeah.
But the scene works because you don't think about that. You don't think about how maybe unrealistic it is. It's the building of the tension up to that point, and you feel the tension. The actors here are all great because they all are expressing this desperation. They're all screwed.
Yeah, because if she dies, they're done.
I love his reaction when Vincent asks him, he goes, "So what happens after I do it?" He goes, "I don't know. I'm just as anxious to find out as you are."
Right, yeah.
Stab her 3 times is the best part, man.
Yeah.
So I stab her 3 times?
He's like, "No, man."
But that scene, too, like, I was thinking about it, rewatching it. I was like, man, I mean, it's fucked up on Vincent's part. I mean, he's bringing Stoltz and Lance into this. If I have someone ODing, I'm going to go to my dealer.
And he crashes his car in front of his house.
Right.
It's so funny because I didn't notice. Maybe I didn't notice back then. I don't remember. But the damage, I didn't realize. I remember that scene when I was younger being cheesy, crashing. Like I remember, like imagining like a tire rolling or something like that, but it didn't happen. So watching it this time, I'm like, oh shit! When they actually showed, I'm like, damn, he fucked his house up.
Yeah.
He did.
And that car is not drivable. That's like, Commando when they flip the Porsche over, like all of a sudden it's okay again.
And he's worried about a scratch that somebody keyed it earlier, and then he just
Right.
Butch did it. I think Butch.
I think Butch did.
Yeah,
that
I think
as
so
well.
too.
That seems nuts. He like drives him in. Like he's like, "Hey man, you know who Marcellus Wallace is?" You know, I mean, he like brings him into this problem. That's fucked up.
There's many iconic scenes in the movie, but the iconic scene of them over her and stabbing her in the heart with the adrenaline
Dripping.
Say something.
Yeah,
dripping
with it
Something.
dripping off there, and how that all wraps up is really good. And it feels it feels real. You come off of the tension of that whole scene, you get maybe the couple of minutes that it takes to have her go back into the house, and they agree never to speak of it.
Vincent blowing her the kiss at the end is why I think he's in love. It's very
Possible.
affectionate the way he
Yeah,
does
it
it.
is.
It's intimate. She tells a joke to him.
Right.
Yes.
Because she's vulnerable at this point, right? She OD'd. She's back. She's not the cool chick. No, she's vulnerable as fuck. And this is the moment. And he helped her out. And she now opens herself up and provides that joke.
And you're immediately then hit with Christopher Walken.
The watch in the ass.
Well, this is the most Christopher Walken.
Oh,
There's nobody else who could deliver this soliloquy. I mean, it's the best way to put it. It's like you hear him talk about like reading the script. This is like 6 pages long, and Christopher Walken nails this. The reason that it has to be Christopher Walken giving this speech is the Christopher Walken Dennis Hopper speech in True Romance, which is the best part of that whole movie. Christopher Walken is perfect here. This all works because Butch is dreaming about this, but it also works for the audience because we get to understand how important the watch is to Butch. Everything that happens here is centered around his desire for this watch. None of this happens if the watch is in the hotel room. It's a very mundane thing where otherwise he has to go back for the watch and it's a disaster.
Question is, why doesn't he pack his stuff and then go to the boxing thing? Why does he rely on somebody else to pack up all his crap? This is one of the things I'm going to hate about the Bruce Willis character.
Which is why he points that exact point out.
Yeah, right after he does his Ike Turner impersonation. So.
Right.
Yeah.
So we get the Christopher Walken speech about how he had the watch up his ass, and it's his dad's watch, so we know it's important. But
It's a
Butch ends up
painful
killing
piece of metal.
This watch.
This watch. Butch kills the guy he's boxing with and screws over Marcellus Wallace. When he gets into the taxi cab, it's not my favorite part of the whole movie.
No,
I still like it, but I get, Ken, what you said earlier about how Vincent's part where he's in front of the black and white screen, it works.
It's color with Vincent.
That's right. It's very Lynchian.
Yeah, black and white with this one.
It feels off.
It's Hitchcock, man. I think he's doing Hitchcock on there.
It starts with the cab driver, too. I don't like her either. This all could have just been cut.
Absolutely. 100%.
You could have him just in the taxi getting out, putting the gloves, and having the radio on talking about how the person died.
Well, because we'll talk about it, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
He goes in the taxi and he goes on the payphone, and that's when you find out all the bets against him. You know, like he bet for himself. So all these bets were made for him to win, and so he's making all that money. So he got money from Marcellus Wallace, obviously handed him the cash
to throw it in. He's
making all this money. Yep, and then he's got all this money for him winning. All the bets they made on him winning, and that's all you need.
Drag another half hour into the movie.
And if you watch the deleted scenes,
I've seen some of the deleted scenes. One of the deleted scenes was when he's buying the heroin. But there was extended on that, and when they're also, I was going to say it.
Are you an Elvis? Are you an Elvis or a Beatles man?
Yeah, there was the Elvis and the Beatles man, and even when they're at the restaurant, it's extended a little bit out. So
because she mentions him being an Elvis guy in the theatrical cut.
Yeah.
I like the character.
The taxi driver.
I think she's interesting.
What it's like to kill a man. Like every other word? What is it like to kill a man?
This whole section was based off of a short movie that Tarantino had seen. The money he got from Pulp Fiction, he ended up making a whole movie about that character. I mean,
That's right. Yeah, I heard about that, yes.
He funded a movie that was based off of the character.
I just think the scene is just awful. I'm sorry. It's no good. It's too long. It's not needed at all.
You
He
could have
should've just-
shaved off 20 minutes easy.
We could just heard the radio say that he won the fight and killed
Yep.
the man in the ring, which, again,
Well, we
I don't
do
understand.
Maybe a little dialogue.
I don't even think you needed to have them say he killed the man in the ring. Because here's the other problem. You killed the man in the ring. There's more heat on you than just Marcellus. The boxing commission, sports in sports in general are going to be looking for you at your apartment, every place they can find you, because there's going to be an inquiry, and you're not going to just be able to disappear. But they don't talk about that.
We don't know what happened though
at all.
Yeah, we don't know ultimately what ends
Was a
up.
towel thrown? Was it's like Rocky IV?
Yeah.
And
What's
where
going on?
is he
Exactly
going?
right.
Nashville
He
or
dies.
something?
They say that they were
Tarantino's
going to
from
go to
Tennessee.
Costa Rica or Bora Bora.
Eventually,
Bora Bora.
yes.
Eventually, yeah. They were kind of
eventually.
throwing names out there, and that's the other thing.
Yeah, they were going to disappear.
After this taxi scene, we get this. Oh, honey, I'm home. Let's lay down and then we'll have sex and all that stuff. And I'm just
all
thinking,
sweaty from a
this is so freaking boring. Just move
Will you kiss
on
it?
already.
That's my favorite line.
I'm enjoying this movie up until this point, and now this movie has to get me back into the movie again because it's taking too darn long for all this to play out. I don't need to know about his girlfriend. The girlfriend doesn't matter at all. All you need to do with her is tell him that she forgot the watch. That's it. And the taxi driver, don't need her.
No, all you need is him going to the taxi. I don't mind hearing the radio that he killed him. That's fine, because then he shows him he doesn't have no remorse. It's like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then him on the payphone, so you know that he's making more money from the bets. Go to the hotel. He's got a girlfriend. Give me 2 minutes. I don't need know about a potbelly.
Yeah,
and then that's it.
If there is one indulgent part of the movie, it's here. We get to see more of Butch and who Butch is. You can debate all day whether or not Butch even deserved to have a part here, but if you look at this like a novel, could be a chapter of the novel. This is a character who he really only has one little interaction. It's not the best part of the movie, but it leads to one of the most interesting parts of the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Because Marcellus Wallace sicks the dogs on him. I mean, you get to hear Marcellus Wallace tell Vincent and the guy who was the bartender, he tells them he's going to sick the dogs on him. On
the trainer.
Or, they're going to sick the dogs on the trainer, and he's going to tell
trainer.
where Butch is going.
Poor trainer has no idea. They're going to throw him in the kennel. That's what he says. Throw him in the kennel.
Guilty by association.
Right.
Yep.
Butch is a selfish person. He leaves his people out to dry. Presumably, you would think that were his friends. He's all about the greed and screwing over Marcellus Wallace.
But at the same time, and we've watched enough of these type of movies, these boxing movies where a mobster tries to get the boxer into his pocket, then the boxer is in for life. They don't have a life. They're subject to whatever the mobster wants from them. And so I don't know if he's selfish.
Yeah, look at Raging Bull.
Yeah, look at Raging Bull. I don't think he's selfish here. I think he needs a way out. I don't think he wants to throw the fight because he's a boxer. He has pride. And I think they're referencing his dad. I think he's trying to do his dad proud by not doing that,
right?
Not throwing a fight like that. But at the same time, he allows all these other people to get killed based on his decision. I don't think he would have known that the trainer would have gotten into trouble. The guy who was behind the bar basically said, I believe him. I believe he doesn't know anything. Exactly. And Marcellus doesn't care.
He must have scorched the earth or whatever he says.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think he
scorched earth on this motherfucker.
And actually, earlier when the boxer dies, he does say, "Sorry about that." He actually names the boxer by name. I can't remember.
He does.
So but there's nothing he can do. There's nothing, and it wasn't trying to kill him. It's not like that was his goal. But
then on the phone, he's like, he shouldn't be in the ring in the first place. That was going to happen, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
This ultimately leads to the next bit of tension that we have, which is Butch comes to the realization that his girlfriend did not pack the watch. He has to have this watch. So this is where he decides to do probably the dumbest thing of anybody in this movie. He decides to go back to his apartment to get this watch.
Second dumbest thing. First is coming up.
Yeah, but you know that this is good. This is going to put him in great peril. That's the first place they're going to look for him is going to be at his apartment.
That's why he goes kind of like a couple blocks down.
Right, and he sneaks his way in there. And
he doesn't even do a good job sneaking in. And the fact that Vincent doesn't hear him come freaking into the apartment.
Before you get there, one of the cool things is the Universe building is as Bruce Willis is walking down past one of the apartments on, I guess, somebody's TV or radio, they're doing a commercial for Jackrabbit Slims.
Yes, it's a change because they said the nearest.
The nearest, yes. I thought that was just cool. But yeah, he walks into the apartment. The apartment's not that big. How Vincent didn't hear him come into the apartment. He grabs the watch. My dad actually had that little kangaroo.
I thought you said for a second that your dad had a watch that
watch
came
up
in
his ass. No,
Yeah, in Hanoi.
No, he actually had that. He actually had that little kangaroo. And then Butch decides to have Pop-Tarts. Had Butch just
Toaster
left.
pastries.
That's ridiculous. I'm sorry. That is so stupid.
Well, he thinks he's in the clear. He's like,
He thinks he's in the clear. He thinks he's made it. And that's when he sees the gun. I don't know if it's an Uzi or a Tech 9.
It was a badass gun. Let's just put it that way.
I think it was a Tech 9, man. I think it was a silencer, yeah.
It was like one of those guns that they would use in the Expendables.
Yeah, it has a silencer on it. And we don't know who's there, but we know somebody's there. And, of course, then we see that it's Vincent Vega. And Bruce Willis shoots Vincent Vega.
And the stupidest way to die.
Pops,
and that sucks.
Yeah, it does.
Because we've become kind of attached to Vincent. He's made it out of that horrible situation that he had with Mia to go out like this. It kind of sucks.
And the next situation that we're going to talk about with shooting the guy in the face.
Yeah. All that happened before this.
Yeah.
And also going into the restaurant and the restaurant being held up.
That's true.
Now, does Butch shoot him if the Pop-Tarts doesn't pop up?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I don't know.
He doesn't even eat the Pop-Tarts for crying out loud. He should have just grabbed
them. Yeah, I know.
He
leaves them. He leaves them there. But
and he cleans it down, but he has a hand on it while he's cleaning it down. And he doesn't clean down the part where he has his hand.
There's a little bit of, like I said, there's a little problematic in here.
He's a boxer. Exactly. I'm okay with him leaving his
tucks his sleeve. He puts his sleeve on his hand. And then
yeah. And Vincent is the Wile E. Coyote of hired hitmen, to put it mildly. But poor Butch here. Butch escapes all of this and only to pull up to an intersection and have Marcellus Wallace walk right in front of him. And he chooses to hit him with the car.
I think it's the right decision at that time. I think so.
But he goes barreling into this intersection.
Yeah. Singing Flowers on the Wall.
Flowers on the Wall, right. It would have been so easy for Quentin to do the natural action movie thing where the car goes into an intersection and goes through the intersection and never gets hit. Or two other cars swerve and they hit each other. Quentin makes a decision here to have the car T-bone him, which is a real life situation.
Problems with this because you have an accident, you have witnesses, you even have a lady who gets shot.
And there's no cops around.
It's Welcome
LA.
to LA.
It's LA.
Kathy Griffith, man. Kathy,
she was there. Kathy Griffith.
Kathy Griffin's first part.
What is Marcellus carrying there? Like donuts and coffee or something?
Yeah, he's got donuts. He's got donuts and coffee. Why is motherfucker? Why is Marcellus Wallace carrying?
I love it. I know.
Pastries and coffee.
Is Butch driving around his office area? I mean,
Meanwhile, he has like Malibu house or wherever he lives.
Maybe he's going back to Butch's apartment. You never get to have an idea of how far Butch has traveled before he runs into and runs over Marcellus Wallace. As if the thing couldn't get any crazier. They run into this pawn shop and Butch is beating the hell out of Marcellus, and that's when Maynard pulls the gun on them to stop them from hurting each other.
Yeah, I got flies in the web.
Yeah, spider caught some flies. Yeah.
Right. And Maynard makes the very interesting decision to knock them both out.
Well, he doesn't knock them both out. I think Marcellus is already
gets knocked out by Butch.
Yeah.
But he takes the butt end of the shotgun and knocks Butch out.
Because Butch is about to shoot his fucking face off, man.
Yeah. And Butch and Marcellus then wake up with ball gags in their mouth.
Crazy.
And this is enter me in the theater. We're going ape shit.
Right.
And it's like, what in the hell is going on now?
That's just a typical Friday night for Ted back in the 90s.
Yeah, you got shit hanging on the walls. Yeah,
I think a senior or junior in high school, I had no idea what this shit was. I'm from a little bitty town in Illinois, and
that's
I have
where
no
it mostly
idea.
Happens, Ted.
Exactly. It didn't happen in my neighborhood. I know that.
I think you were some repressed feelings.
Crazy, man.
Memory loss at an older age.
And so we meet Zed, who I guess is a security guard.
I think that's all he is.
Watching this time, rewatch, I thought he was a cop.
I thought he was a cop too.
I always thought he was a cop too until I saw that said security guard.
It's so cheesy looking.
It's like entering into just a weird ass dream. And then Zed comes in and I don't know. Somebody want to describe how this all goes because it's the
It's
most.
a rape scene.
They're
Yeah.
deciding who they're going to rape. They play Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo.
First, he brings out the gimp.
They brought out the
And
gimp.
that shot where it's like just behind them. Marcellus Wallace is like kind of trying to look. Like they have no idea what's gonna happen. And
Yeah.
I love their
just
looks though.
fucking-
Once they see him, though, it's like,
Yeah.
They're like,
the heck is this?
oh shit, we're
opens up a trunk with a cage on top,
Right.
and like this 6'5" motherfucker in leather comes out.
Better
Mumbles.
wake up the gimp then. So I'll
And,
bet you in the theater people were just losing it, huh?
No, I'm telling you, man. I was
it just you?
My heart was pounding, man. It was nuts. The escape scene was more intense because I was like, "Oh my god, what the fuck's gonna happen?" Like it was.
It is. It's so intense. And when they shut the door and then they start
Comanche,
and you're hoping that Butch can get out. He knocks the gimp out because the gimp's got the zipper over his mouth, which is again really stupid on their part.
He's chained.
The cool thing though is Bruce Willis can leave, and he can leave Marcellus Wallace here, but Butch has humanity, and he goes, I can't in good conscience leave this guy behind, even though he wants to kill me.
Yeah, getting raped on a pommel horse.
Like you said, Adam, this is so awesome, his progression here. He's got the hammer.
No, what else?
Baseball bat.
Not the hammer. So
Baseball bat.
He goes to the baseball bat. You're like, okay. But in the background, you see the chainsaws. Oh, dude, take the chainsaw. He like picks up the chainsaw and he does the Doom and Duke Nukem thing with it. But then he sees the samurai sword, the katana.
Which
Tarantino right there.
Is that
Is it a Hanzo sword?
Yeah.
It's
maybe.
I've searched for whether or not it's a Hanzo sword.
It's sharpened. It's definitely sharpened.
It's sharpened like a Hanzo sword. I'll say that it is. It's more fun that way if it is.
I wish he would just came in with the chainsaw.
But then he
That
makes
noise. That make noise.
Yeah, he loses
that would have made noise.
No, they would even hear it anyway. In this movie, you can't even hear somebody come into a room.
Well, Maynard, whatever his name is, he's licking his chops.
He's like, do it, man.
Oh
Do it.
He's real into this, and
until he sees Marcellus's face when Bruce Willis comes in, and he's like,
I love it. He's all like looking over.
And he
slices him
and dices
and then
him.
does
I didn't like the sword behind the back, kind of in the gut type of thing.
It's like that's that's
a little cheesy. A little bit.
That's
Tarantino.
Yeah, that's old school.
I don't mind if you know how to use a sword like that, but I don't think Butch has ever used a sword like that before.
But then that leads, of course. Then Marcellus gets away from Zed and shoots him, and
he's
going to get medieval on his ass.
Yeah, right.
You're like, Marcellus Wallace.
One of my favorite lines in the movie is, "Oh, that one."
I'm going to get some pipe beaten. And then
He's like, "What now?" And he does
on
this whole
ass.
spiel, and Butch is like, "I mean about us." He's like,
"Oh, that us."
Yeah,
I would love it.
Yeah.
But this is another part that I feel like it's a little awkward in this type. We didn't mention it.
Well, it is awkward. Ken, guy got raped in the ass.
Not talking about just that. I'm talking about the use of the N-word throughout this whole scene, because the N-word is used a lot by a bunch of white men.
Well, that's the point. They're fucking hillbilly motherfuckers, man.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. That's where there's a difference.
Not just by hillbillies, though. We see Quentin do it later on, and
we
he's
do.
not a hillbilly.
Yeah, but you can tell the different ways that it's used. The way it's described is when it's used by white guys with the hard R at the end, that's when you know you're dealing with racists. If the R is not as hard
I feel like
at the
Quentin
end...
said the R, though. I really do. But I think it's just him pronouncing it. Who knows?
You know that Quentin is more familiar with
I didn't
Jules.
go to school for that, so I don't know if you're right or wrong for the pronunciation of that word.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're not going to use the word, but...
we're not. I had them, but in the 90s, I used it. I admit it, because it was one of those words that your friends just thought it was fun to say against each other. We didn't think it was a racist slur. It was just one of those.
We were using it where I grew up. It was not in a
movies like this don't help though, because at the time, that's cool. Like he's saying it, that's cool.
And in fact, it might be this kind of movie that made it seem like it was cool to say it, and that it wasn't racist. That it was just a word to say. And
there's two different ways to use it. But the Pulp Fiction proves that there's two different ways to use it. There's the right way to use it, and then there's the I'm a racist bastard way to use it, and that's Zed and Maynard.
Well,
There's
I
no
don't
two
know. I
ways
think
around
Quentin, when he says it's even though he's married to an African American woman,
But he also has familiarity with Jules between those
but
two
what
characters.
he is saying is offensive. He's not talking to him like and he uses he's saying that my place is not a place to dump.
Right.
That's kind of a racist. That's being racist.
It is one of the more off-putting.
It's Tarantino in the 90s having the shock value.
Right.
Really, at the end of the day. And
because it is.
Doesn't age well.
It's very shocking. So Butch and Marcellus end up on as good terms as possible here. And Butch is ostracized from L.A. and
he loses L.A. privileges.
Steals the motorcycle, picks up the girl, and see you later.
Eric,
it's a chopper.
It's a chopper.
If Butch did not escape, he'd be next, right?
Yeah, he kind of knew that.
Would they be killed afterwards?
Most likely.
Yeah,
I would imagine.
Is that their MO?
So.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Would it be another GIMP?
Yeah. I think you have to like it to be a GIMP. I'm not sure, but
the GIMP. I think the GIMP liked his role.
Yeah,
he was laughing.
Yeah, he was into it. I don't think you're just tacitly involved at that point.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though. They don't check to see who they have. It sounds like Marcellus is well known in the area because when they ask Jimmy knows.
Right.
Jimmy knows who he is.
But Jimmy also knows Jules.
Yeah, but
Jimmy also
he's in the heroin business. Yeah.
But there's other people that seem to know him too.
They don't seem hip to the scene.
Like you're in LA and you have these hillbillies, essentially,
right?
Rednecks.
And ultimately, what this whole scene is an homage to is Deliverance. That's exactly what this is. Whereas Quentin down the line in other movies is people have problems with the fantasies of what should have happened, like with Hitler and Inglourious Bastards or the family in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Quentin's saying this is what should have happened to the rednecks in Deliverance. Burt Reynolds and Ned Beatty should have went medieval on their ass.
Don't need him to go back and pick her up. We don't need to know that. We can assume went out of town.
But you get the iconic line, "But Zed's dead, baby. Zed's dead."
Yeah, I could risk that one iconic line for this.
I can have that scene.
That's cool.
That scene only. That's fine.
Now we're on to what's really the last section of the movie here, which is the Bonnie situation, where we end up back in the original apartment, and Jules and Vincent have just dispatched of Brett, and then Alexis Arquette comes barreling out of the bathroom with a hand cannon. He had a .357, didn't he? I mean,
it was a pretty big gun.
That was a Dirty Harry.
Dirty Harry. Yeah, Dirty Harry style. Yep.
And Jules is convinced that it was a miracle that they didn't get shot.
What the miracle was that there was bullet holes behind them before he actually shot at them.
I can never decide if that's a fail or if that's a movie mistake or if they had holes in their apartment to begin with.
I think it's a movie mistake, just because of the fact that we're supposed to assume that those bullets were supposed to hit them, and somehow they did a JFK miracle bullet and go around them.
But this leads to the discussion that's going to dictate really the last part of the movie, which is, was this a miracle that they lived? After they've dispatched of Brett and everybody in the apartment except for Marvin, you figure they're going to Marcellus Wallace's to dump off the briefcase and Marvin wherever, and John Travolta shoots Marvin in the face, and every time it happens, I laugh my ass off.
His trigger control is lacking.
Again, another reason why he probably has to go to Amsterdam if he doesn't get killed by the end of this film.
It's the damnedest thing ever. He just shoots Marvin in the face.
Which, technically, entry, exit, I don't think they would get anything in the front.
I have no idea.
At least not as much as they show.
Yeah,
but the exit wound only.
Pretty much see when he's cleaning the car up. Obviously,
I'm on brain detail. Right. You should be on brain detail. I'm a pancake laying motherfucker.
No, mushroom
cloud laying motherfucker.
You just like anything with a pancake thing in it. So here again, why does Marcellus like Vincent? Because Vincent doesn't seem to be good at what he does. Maybe he's loyal. Maybe that's what he likes about him.
I think it's right,
and that's probably what it is. But he is not a good hitman. Easily offended.
Yeah, really.
He has no reason for his finger to be on the trigger. Marvin isn't going anywhere.
He wasn't holding him as to keep him there. He was asking him a question.
Right. He was asking him about...
He just put his hand on the back seat of the car.
He was asking about the miracle, and he's like, no, I don't have an opinion on this. And he was just staying out of it, because if he said probably the wrong thing, he probably would have shot him anyway.
At the very least, Vincent should have had the safety on.
Should probably not even had the gun in his hand. There was no reason to even have the gun in his hand.
It's a very good point too, but it's still funny. So we meet Jimmy. Jimmy is Jules' friend, and so they have to figure out a way to get this car detailed.
His racist friend.
The only friend he has, the 818, right?
They're washing their hands. They're getting the blood all over the.
Yeah.
Use this towel.
And here again, that's another. It's one of those little things. It adds so much to these characters. But then we meet the Wolf,
Harvey Keitel.
Winston Wolf, Harvey Keitel.
Oh.
You're talking about cool. This is the essence of cool.
Yeah.
Yes, Harvey Keitel is the man.
And I'm gonna tell you right now, at that era, an actor in SX was my favorite car at that time.
Oh, it's
and that was
an
before
awesome
the movie.
car.
Before the movie, I love that. I used to play Need for Speed, PlayStation 1. Like Actor NSX, I loved it. And seeing it in the movie, I was going nuts. Which doesn't fit the movie. If you think about it, that car does not fit.
Not at all.
The movie.
Winston Wolf is awesome.
Oh,
he's obviously Marcellus Wallace's cleaner, and his whole
and a
interaction
well-known cleaner at that.
Yes.
Yeah, because Jules is like,
the Wolf.
Yeah, you bring
That's all you had to say.
That's all you had to
Shit.
say.
That's all you had to say.
What I like about Mr. Wolf, though, is if you give him respect, you get to call him by his first name. You get to call him Winston.
And that's the thing, too, going back to Jules, like he's yelling at Marcellus on the phone.
And Marcellus is all cool, and he's like
he respects him. That's like,
He let Jules and Vincent call him
until the end.
Until the end.
Until the end, until
when
they've
they
done
show
what he
respect.
said.
And then he says,
Jimmy, like lets Jimmy say it early on.
Right, because Jimmy right away gets him the coffee, does whatever he
Gourmet
wants.
coffee, baby.
Yeah.
Gourmet. He's like,
I liked how he liked the coffee too. He doesn't say it. He just goes,
Aunt Jenny? Yeah.
And Jenny and Connor, Uncle Connor.
Yeah, or something, yeah.
Take it they didn't have money.
Well, your Uncle Marcellus, he does.
You like Oak? You an Oak man?
You an Oak man?
Yeah. He gets this cleaned up for him. He puts Jules and Vincent to work, and they have to clean up the car
in an exorbitant amount of time of 40-some-odd minutes.
So
they clean that car up real fast.
A lot of it, though, is they got the bed spreads.
A once-over.
Yeah.
A once-over.
Yeah.
Once-over.
Right.
Yeah.
They get all the brain and
the
skull.
Pool.
And then they get hosed down. And I'm sorry, but if you get hosed down with the Jerry curl, doesn't the Jerry curl go away? Like, doesn't it get
I have no idea.
flat? I thought that was the case.
We are 4 white men. We have no idea what happens to the Jerry curl if it gets wet like
soul
that.
glow.
Stain couches and
doors. They're your clothes, motherfucker.
Right.
Yeah,
I
love that. This whole sequence here is another one of my favorite parts of the movie. The interactions are classic.
When we get past the Butch part, this is what gets me back into the movie.
Yep,
when we are introduced to these characters again. Like you said, Ted, it's funny when Marvin gets shot and just how John Travolta says it. It's funny.
I shot Marvin in the face.
Yeah.
Is this the first time when you realize it's out of order?
Yes, I think
really?
so. This movie is one of those movies where you have to go back and piece it together. Even now, when I'm doing the podcast, I'm losing my track of when something is introduced.
Exactly.
It can get a little confusing. And then sometimes I don't think it works really well, but in some cases it works really well. I do like the bookends because I do like them finishing off with this and then the restaurant. From here on out, this movie is golden. So I'm very happy that Butch is out of the picture here. I like Bruce Willis. It should have been much smaller, and we needed to get back to the people that really care about
characters. But these interactions here, it feels like real interactions with real people. I've always wondered this too. Is Monster Joe with car crushing in the salvage yard? Is that Joe from Reservoir Dogs?
There's an extended scene that shows they have the conversation in his office before he goes out and sees the daughter.
So he wouldn't be the same Joe that was dead at the end of Reservoir Dogs.
No, it's not the same Joe.
And then Jules and Vincent decide to go to breakfast, and they happen to go to breakfast at the same diner that our 2 original characters, Honey Bunny and
Pumpkin.
Pumpkin and Honey Bunny.
It all comes
holding up the
Ringo.
Yeah,
Hey, Ringo.
Ringo. They're holding up the diner. Jules, being a person that could have went off the handle here and just dispatched of both of them, he decides to play it cool and let them live. It's an amazing human moment that Jules has, and this is the scene he should have won Best Supporting Actor just for this scene. His work in the whole movie is awesome, but this scene at the end where he's describing his speech, his Ezekiel 25:17, outside of the Christopher Walken speech, that is the moment where you really get an awesome piece of acting from Samuel L. Jackson.
Does a great job right off the bat. Even when they're robbing him, he's in control of the whole situation. And of course, Vincent's in the bathroom because that's what Vincent does.
Because that's what Vincent does. Even when they're sitting there and they're having the breakfast before the holdup happens, it's a real life interaction. This whole random thing has happened to them in this past 2 hours of their life.
That's crazy.
They're sitting there talking about why Jules eats bacon or not.
Bacon's good.
It's awesome.
It's a breakup at the end of the day for a relationship.
Yeah, they're not going to see each other maybe ever again.
Jules is going to wander the world like Kung
Kane.
Fu. Kane from Kung Fu.
I wonder, though, when Jules finds out later on that Vincent dies, does Jules feel bad about it? Because if he was there, that wouldn't happen.
You never know. That's one of those questions that, is left to us. But I'm glad we've never gotten to know that.
How many people own bad motherfucker wallets after this movie?
And the even cooler thing is that was Quentin's real wallet. That's awesome.
Right.
That's a baller move to have bad motherfucker on your wallet. And I've wanted one ever since.
Does he tell him to leave the wallets on the counter and walk out?
No. He says, you take the wallets, so that's a pretty good score. Between my wallet and all these other wallets and the register, you're good to go, man.
What did he say that to put back on the counter?
Briefcase. The briefcase is all that matters.
Was it just the briefcase? I thought he said the wallets.
Take all the wallets, take my money. You guys
get out.
It's a pretty good score. And actually, I noticed when I rewatched it last night, the first scene in the movie, and I could be making this up, but you could hear for a second Samuel L. Jackson talking to the background.
It's the little things like that that keep everything. And we'll even forgive the fact that Amanda Plummer says something different here than she does at the beginning. I love it so much, though. It needs to be that at the beginning of the movie because that's what grabs you.
Right?
It grabs you by your shirt collar or your balls and just says, you're in for a ride. Get ready. Yeah. And we're here. It's just part of the scene.
It's full circle, man.
Well, let's talk about the soundtrack.
This soundtrack is awesome. You got Kool and the Gang. You've got the Stadler Brothers.
Urge Overkill.
Dick
Dale.
Yeah, Dick
I didn't
Dale.
like the Urge Overkill song. I honestly listen.
Oh, you don't like that
like,
version?
Right. Now I'm like, cool, but back then it was on the radio. That was the only radio song, right? Because it was a modern song per se.
Oh, yeah, video on MTV.
Yeah. Overplayed. I fucking hated it.
Oh yeah.
Then I hated it. Now I'm like, all right.
I used to do the Urge Overkill version of the song at karaoke. Yeah.
No, I mean the soundtrack.
Yeah.
I own the CD. Back in the day when movies like Clerks soundtrack. I had the Clerks soundtrack. I had this soundtrack. I mean, when you had clips from the movie in the soundtrack, you had oh man, it was blowing my mind.
And the soundtrack, the album was the poster from Pulp Fiction with Uma Thurman on the cover.
Right.
And it will look cool. It almost looked cool just to have the art cover.
This is all released before the movies. They always release them before the movies. So you get a little taste of the movie here in the clips.
That's how I memorized the whole Royale with Cheese bit.
Absolutely.
And that's why to this day, when I watch the movie, there's parts of the movie I can recite just right off the top. And it's because it was all on the soundtrack. One of the things that Quentin does exceptionally well in a Scorsese kind of way, the music is just, it fits the entire mood and the scene. It's so cool.
Scorsese style, yeah.
And I think it comes back to the movies that we reviewed before. When we did our director series for a while, we talked about Kubrick, and then we talked about Scorsese and how Scorsese borrowed from Kubrick. And here it seems like Tarantino is then borrowing from Scorsese and possibly Kubrick as well, because he's such a film buff. And we also talked about Scorsese being a film buff, and they know how to not copy, but pay homage to those directors, those styles, the older movies. And that's what I like about Quentin Tarantino. He's a fan. Just like Martin Scorsese, he's a fan, knows how to use the music in the movie the right way. Here, Reservoir Dogs, when we have Stuck in the Middle with You, he just knows how to make that work.
So soundtracks date movies. Yeah, so you have a lot of movies you watch, and there's a soundtrack for that era, and it's very dated. Whereas a lot of movies that have scores and strings, that lasts a lifetime.
You're talking every Kenny Loggins soundtrack that's out there?
Right, yeah. Kenny Loggins,
Footloose, Top Gun.
It's dated, you know what I mean? So you watch movies, you're like, oh, I love this movie. It's the soundtrack dates it. Whereas in this movie, despite using songs of certain eras, it doesn't feel dated.
The only thing that makes this movie feel dated is their excitement about the cell phone use.
Are you talking on a cellular phone?
Cellular phone?
Yeah.
I will say this. I love the fact that, there's Apple Music and Spotify. Of course, Spotify, listen to our podcast on Spotify. But
get that contract.
Exactly.
Get the plug.
What sucks is the death of the movie soundtrack. on these digital download formats. You can't go to Apple and listen to the soundtrack of Pulp Fiction. Because I wanted to do that the other day just for...
No, yeah, Spotify is the same way. People make their own playlists for it.
It doesn't have the clips from the movie in it. That's what kind of makes the soundtrack so great. And it adds that just much color.
Dan DeVito is the executive producer of this movie.
Yes,
yeah. How about that?
One of those crazy things, yes.
He's produced a lot of movies. Yeah.
And Harvey Keitel, of course, was a major executive producer for Reservoir Dogs.
And the Harvey Keitel and the Martin Scorsese and Quentin Tarantino connection there, too.
Yep.
And Bruce Willis and Travolta, look who's talking once again. You know?
Talk about your classic movies there, yeah.
Wow.
If I could only sit down and have a conversation with one person, I would want to have a conversation with Quentin Tarantino. This is the one man
he would talk over you the whole time,
and I would listen. If there's one person in the world that I would want to sit down and have a conversation with, it would be him.
Didn't Joe Rogan already talk to him?
Joe Rogan talks to everybody.
I will say, if you watch the extras of this Blu-ray, you get Quentin Tarantino talk about the deleted scenes, and just the way he talks about movies when he's talking about deleted scenes is interesting enough.
It's amazing.
So I understand your choice because I do think he's an interesting person because, again, he's a fan of movies. You don't even have to talk to him about his movies. If you talk about other movies, I think he even will get more excited.
He's at a whole other level.
He'll talk to you about music, too. He's my favorite person living right now. I love Quentin Tarantino. I love everything that he does.
I thought I was.
I thought your wife was, too. I'm going to have to tell her.
As a quote in the movie, that's a bold statement.
He's one of my favorite human beings. I would give just about
I thought he was going to say I would die for him. I would die for him.
Would you give up your soul into a suitcase for it?
Possibly. That's how much I would love to meet and talk to Quentin Tarantino.
No, just sign right here.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about our reviews. Let's kick it off with Ken. Ken, what do you think of it?
I like Quentin Tarantino movies. I like Pulp Fiction. I do enjoy this movie. I love the characters like Samuel L. Jackson in the role. I like John Travolta up to a certain point. I know this is his big comeback movie. Maybe it's Look Who's Talking, but it definitely wasn't Look Who's Talking 2 or the third one that they had. That's pretty atrocious. The cast is great. I love the dialogue jumping from scene to scene to scene. But there are problems with the movie, unfortunately. The Butch storyline, there's a lot that could be cut that's not needed. This movie is a little long. And I just want to get back to our hitmen. I love both of them. I didn't like to see Vincent dying in this movie, especially the way he died. It was just stupid, in my opinion, that he leaves this massive gun while he goes takes a crap. You think he's coming back, right? That's why you're taking a crap. I'm assuming that you're just going to stay there waiting for him to come back. So you're just going to conveniently leave the gun out there. Not just a small gun where it might easily be passed by. The most noticeable gun in the history of noticeable guns. That's my problem here is Vincent is not very bright as a hitman. Now, that makes me believe that he went to Amsterdam because he did something stupid and had to lay low in another country for a while because he's not a very good hitman.
Are they hitmen at the end of the day, though? You know what I mean?
Or just guys who just needed to do one thing, and that's get a briefcase back. We really don't know. And for the most part, we don't need to know. But for character development, I do like a little bit background. But I have a bigger problem with Bruce Willis scenes. The dialogue with him, except for the Zen chopper thing, outside of that, I could care less what Bruce Willis has to say throughout this movie. I'm not the biggest Harvey Keitel fan in the world. I don't dislike him, but he's not like one of my favorite guys in the world. But here, I adore him. I love his character. I love everything there is about him in this movie. To the final review on this from me, it's a B. I think if you trimmed it down a little bit, remove some of the stuff from Bruce Willis, if you want to replace that a little bit with maybe a story about Vincent on why he was in Amsterdam, there's a deleted scene from the restaurant when him and Mia are talking, and they find out that they actually know the same people in Amsterdam and hang out at the same restaurant or bar. That could have been an interesting thing, and I would rather have played off of that than listen to anything about Butch's character. But at least we get wonderful Christopher Walken's speech about putting a watch up a butt. For me, at the end of the day, I like it. Will I watch it again? Yeah, it's a fun movie. Will I fast forward the parts with Bruce Willis? Hell yeah. And that's why I'm giving it a B.
Adam, you're up. What do you think?
1994, 15-year-old Adam. It's an A+. It blew my fucking mind. The rewatches through those years, it's steady A. Watching it now, 2022, I think I would go with Ken. I think it's a B, maybe B+. the scenes that drag. Back then, I guess maybe I didn't pay attention and I was just too like, oh my God, this is insane. Whereas now it's like, okay, yes, it should be a 2-hour movie. I think it should be on AFI. I don't care 99 or fucking 50 or whatever. Yeah, it's cinematic history, American cinematic history, right? It defines the 90s. It kind of invented indie movies in general. Think about all the copycats after that. And all the copycats after that, what do they focus on? They focus on the violence and all that shit. But Tarantino, this movie, even though it's got the violence and everything, it still has a lot more depth to it that these copycats didn't focus on. It's a big deal. The movie's a big deal. Americans didn't know what to do with this movie. Europeans are like, yeah, this is great. Best movie, Cannes, done. Americans are like, whoa, hold up. But, it got there. But the Academy, they couldn't handle that. It was there because it's a word of mouth movie. It's a word of mouth movie. I'd say now it's a B+. It still holds up. Like Ken said, you got these actors, Travolta, Samuel Jackson, Uma Thurman. It's a great movie.
Because of all the things that you said, what defines this movie is the ability to quote it. This is such a quotable movie.
It's a pop culture icon.
I understand why it's on a top 100 list of greatest movies of all time.
I guarantee it's top 10 influential. At least in modern cinema. It's insane.
So I agree with everything you guys have said. This is an incredible movie. I think the cast is incredible. These are all movie lines that we can quote. Everyone knows them. This movie really put Quentin Tarantino on the map. It's a movie that everyone knows. You say Pulp Fiction, everyone knows it. Everyone can quote a line from it or something. It's a movie I haven't seen in a couple years, and I watched it a couple times over the last week. And every time I watch this movie, I loved it more and more and more. I think we can all agree that the Bruce Willis scenes really are not needed. It's something that probably could have been shaved off, save about 30 minutes of this movie. But honestly, as I'm watching it, by the time the movie's over, I'm like, 240? Gee, okay. It kind of rolled by me. It really did.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
The scenes that were kind of dragged were not like scenes that dragged in other movies. This one kind of played out well. It's an incredible movie. It's one that I'm really glad we've done. Definitely going to see this one again. I might actually go out and buy a Blu-ray copy of it. I love this movie. It's got a few little slight misses to it, but overall, I probably put this top 25 for me. It's high. It's up there. For all of that, I'm giving this one an A-. Solid A-. And all right, we're going to end it with Ted. It's his director. It's his baby. I think we already know what it's going to be, but let's hear him say it.
Like I said at the beginning of the podcast, this movie, it literally changed how I watch movies. And it opened up Quentin Tarantino. And because of Pulp Fiction, I've seen everything that he's done. Yeah. And I've seen everything that he's done multiple times. I don't even know how many times I've seen Pulp Fiction. If it's not over 100, it's close. Every couple months, I pull this movie out and I watch it. Why? Because I absolutely adore this movie. I understand the criticisms of especially the Bruce Willis part. It's not the best part of the movie. It still fits for me. It still works. As far as my top 5 movies go, this is right up there. We've hit 2 of them before we hit Casablanca, and now we've hit Pulp Fiction. This is as important to me, especially at that time of my life. It's never ceased to be a part of my life. This is a movie that both my wife and I both quote back and forth to each other. Even if we haven't seen the movie for like 2 or 3 months, we still quote it back and forth to each other, whether it's the Jimmy scenes or just a random line from the movie. Something as stupid as when Mia and Vincent are in the Jackrabbit Slims, and she says something to him, and he goes, well, I have my moments. I use that on almost a daily basis. If somebody says something, it just comes out of my mouth, because that is how ingrained this movie is into my life. It's rare that I go a couple months without watching this movie. Quentin has done a lot of really good movies. Once Upon a Time is right up there with this, but this is his masterpiece. The fact that Samuel L. Jackson didn't win an Oscar for this movie is wrong, in my opinion. It was undoubtable that this was going to win Best Original Screenplay. I mean, because nothing has come, especially in 1994, even came close to an original idea like this. I think Quentin Tarantino, at the end of the day, is probably the best director of our generation, hands down. I don't even think it's close.
I will say that Samuel Jackson did have some really strong competition that year with Martin Landau winning for Ed Wood. You also had Chaz,
Ed Wood is awesome.
Palmer for Bolts Over Broadway, Paul Scofield for Quiz Show, Gary Sinise for Forrest Gump. There was some really good competition there that year.
Good performances there, and I get it. None of those movies are Pulp Fiction. For my taste, they pale in comparison to Pulp Fiction.
I think Shawshank should have won Best Picture.
I can say without a shadow of a doubt, if somebody decided to make up a Jackrabbit Slims, my ass would be there every fucking weekend eating whatever at Jackrabbit Slims. I don't care.
Like that is $5 shake.
Even now, in the days of like the pop-up restaurants that happen, you get them in Chicago and all over the place. There'll be a pop-up. Like there was a Friends pop-up thing. There was a Saved by the Bell pop-up thing, and there's Clerks pop-up things.
What?
Why hasn't there been a pop-up Jackrabbit Slims?
There is one in Wisconsin, but I don't think it's the same type of restaurant.
No, it's not.
It's the same name, though.
It's the same name, yeah, because I've checked it out.
Yeah, we wanted to see this. We wanted to see if there was.
Been there, done that. Yeah.
I've scored the internet looking for one, but this is an A++ movie for me. If there was a way that I could put more of the pluses on it, or if there was something above an A, that's what this is. This is part of me. That's all.
Is this your number one movie of all time?
No, Casablanca is still my favorite movie of all time. As far as my top 5 goes, on any given day, they can be number 1. By the time I get to that point, they're interchangeable because they each mean something different to me.
Eric, what's your favorite movie of all time?
It's between Jaws and Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Jaws.
It's not White Lightning or Gator?
Oh, Burt Reynolds. You know how much I love my
Actually,
Burt
mine,
Reynolds.
honestly, I like Aliens, man. I ain't gonna lie. Aliens is one of those
Alien or Aliens?
2. James Cameron.
Second one?
Yes,
86?
James Cameron.
Okay.
That and like Godfather 2 are kind of...
Oh, yeah. Godfathers.
Yeah.
I love Aliens, man.
We're going to wrap this up here. We're running pretty long on this one, folks.
Oh, yeah.
Ted, where can they find us on Twitter there?
Well, we can be found on Twitter at movie_marquee with 2 E's. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. There's a bunch of different places you can listen to us. If you could leave us a 5-star review and just a written review, that helps us be able to get seen. And
how's our voting going on Facebook, Ken?
Well, right now on Facebook, and of course you can join us on Facebook by just looking us up, the Movie Marquee with 2 E's. And we want to thank you. We've had over 2,500 downloads to our podcast. We're just a small podcast, but we're trying to build, and we like to thank you guys for helping in that way. Right now, we are doing a Quentin Tarantino 4-movie set, and we've already chose the 3, which right now is the one that you just listened to, Pulp Fiction. It's going to be followed by both Kill Bill 1 and 2. We're going to do that as a one podcast, so that probably might even be longer than this one. And then we're going to finish it up with
Once Upon a
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Love it.
Yeah, so we'll finish with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but the rest of the movies are out there for you to vote on. Right now, Reservoir Dogs has a considerable lead over Django Unchained.
I know.
Come on, Jackie Brown.
I don't know. Nobody's voted for Jackie Brown.
I voted for Jackie Brown.
Yep.
So keep the voting up. We appreciate the input. In fact, we appreciate every time you do leave comments for us on Facebook. If you also want to leave us a comment on Anchor, you can go on Anchor and check us out. You can leave a voice message on there, and who knows, maybe we'll play that. And if you don't like to do either one of those, you can feel free to email us at themoviemarquee@gmail.com.
Thank you, Ken, and thank you, Adam, for joining us as our celebrity panelist here.
No, that was
fun.
Thank you so much. No, it was awesome.
We'll definitely invite him back again for another series, maybe. You know, who knows?
Over the top. I want to do Over the Top.
Over the Top.
Oh, there we go.
The Sylvester Stallone trilogy here. Yeah.
Yes.
Love it.
All right, guys. Well,
all right, gentlemen.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and have a pleasant tomorrow, everyone.
Take care, guys.
See you at the movies.
See you next time at the Movie Marquee.